Nice to have you all here for another edition of live demos. And if you're just joining, please say hello in the chat. Would love to meet you. Also, let us know where you're joining in from and what the time is right now. Would love to know. So let me go ahead to share my screen so that we get to see the rundown of today's event. So I'm going to share my screen right now. All right, so I think you should be able to see my screen. Yes, so as you already guessed, today's demo is going to be in collaboration with Cube. If you do not know what Cube is, a brief run through is that Cube is a headless API layer that lets you create data applications. We're going to be talking more about Cube, and this demo specifically focuses on how to build data analytics tools with Cube.js and with Appsmith. So more on this would be coming up. So for today's agenda, we're briefly going to be touching on these points. We're already going through the introduction handled by me. Then we'll meet our friends from Cube.js because we have folks from Cube.js joining. Then we will take a look at how Appsmith works with Cube.js, and we would move on to the live session where we actually build an application live right here using Cube and Appsmith. So before we get started, we need your help in testing Widget Reflow and the new Explorer design. I'm just going to show this to you just in case you are not familiar with Widget Reflow. So here, I have a simple application here, and I'm sure you have started to see this notification to the side of your editor. It says turn on new drag and drop experience. So this is for Widget Reflow, and what it does is that it makes it really easy for you to place widgets on the canvas. Say, for example, you need to place a widget between the container and the list right here. How you would have gone about this previously was to manually resize the container and move the list a bit to the side before having enough space to drop a widget. So I'm just going to show you. But right now, you don't have to do all of that. So let's say I want to put in this text widget between the container and the list. All I need to do is just bring the text widget. And you can see everything resizes accordingly to create enough space for the text widget to live in. So this is the new reflow feature. We are testing this out, especially the velocity of bringing widgets into a container. So please do give us your feedback. We would love to know what you think so that we can make this even more better. And we also have a new Explorer design right here, as you can see to the side here. This is so much cleaner compared to what we had previously because you only get to see widgets, queries, JS, data sources relating to a specific page. So for example, if I switch to page 2 right here, I can only see the widgets of page 2, the queries of page 2, only while I'm in page 2. And it's just so much cleaner because I can easily focus on whatever it is I'm working on right now. So please, would love to get your feedback on testing this out. Do let us know what you think in the chat right now, if you can give that feedback immediately. Or you can send us a message on Discord or through our community forums. We would definitely love to hear from you. All right, so I'm sure you're wondering what Cube is and how it relates with Appsmith. Well, Cube is awesome because it is a data analytics API. So Cube is a headless API layer, emphasis on headless API layer here, because it makes it really easy for you to build analytics applications really quickly and really easily. And the thing I love about Cube the most is that it is headless. So you can pull in data from virtually anywhere, any data source, be it Postgres, be it MongoDB, be it Elasticsearch, Snowflake, and the list keeps going on and on. So you can bring your data from anywhere you have it on the cloud, bring it into Cube, and then build data-rich applications by talking to Cube using REST APIs, using GraphQL, using SQL, whatever you prefer, Cube has it all for you. And that's where Appsmith comes in, because with Cube and Appsmith, you can build business intelligence tools really quickly without having to write any line of code. So you're going to be seeing this in today's demo as we're going to be building together with Cube and Appsmith. And that's where they both come in. So Cube for data analytics, Appsmith for the front end, and together they're just that awesome. So we're going to be meeting our friends from Cube.js right now. And the first person we have on the show is Igor Lukanin. Igor is a well-known speaker and event organizer. He is a huge fan of motion pictures. Last year, he saw a total of 44 movies at the theaters, and just last month, he has seen 10 movies. So that's really record-breaking. He is also into space exploration. He has visited a couple of space centers, including NASA's Kennedy Space Center. He hasn't been to space, by the way, if you're wondering, but I'm sure he has that in his bucket list. And right now, he's the head of DevRel at Cube. So I'm going to add Igor to the stream right now. Hello, Igor.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Confidence. Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to tell you more about Cube and show how it works with Appsmith.
Yes, yes, we are also. It's nice to have you here. All right, so we have one more friend from Cube joining us, and we have Adnan Rahić joining us today on the show. Adnan is a speaker, he's a mentor. He previously was a free code camp community lead at his hometown in Sarajevo. So he's a person who loves giving back to the community. And he's an author. I do not mean blog post author, although he does write on dev.to and also on Medium, but he's a published author, and I think you guys should go check out his book on Node.js monitoring. He's a father to four cute kittens. In fact, I have the pictures right here, so I'm just going to show you. They are really cute photos right now. I think I can see some love coming in from the community. Yeah, so he has four cute kittens, and right now he's a senior dev role at Cube.js. So Adnan, it's really nice having you here. I think I can add you to the stream right now.
Definitely. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here as well.
Awesome. So can you guys tell us a bit more about Cube.js? Because I'm curious to know what Cube.js is and how it relates to Appsmith.
Yeah, sure. That would be lovely to tell you more about Cube. I can see some excitement in the chat, and that's really wonderful. So yeah, let's get started. I'll probably share my screen because well, I have a few slides to demonstrate on this one. I'll probably share the other screen here. So um, yeah, let me start the slideshow, and then I'll be able to do that. Okay, here we go.
All
Here
right.
we go. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, so so yeah, I'll just go through this kind of quick notes. I'll start with a kind of introductory section. Confidence, you did really great job explaining like the foundational concepts of what Cube is and how it plays with Appsmith. But I'll expand on this, and then we'll have this kind of workshop or live demo part, and obviously we'll be taking like any questions that the audience here might have. So what we'll be discussing is like what Cube is as a product, and also what is the concept of like headless business intelligence. What does it even mean? And yeah, we'll explore why Cube plays really well with Appsmith and have a live demo and a Q&A session at the end. So we are here today, obviously, because the world was changing. It's still being changing by many circumstances, and one of that circumstances is that people and companies and governments, they are collecting a lot of data. Data is a new oil. That saying was coined like more than 10 years ago already. So the data sets are becoming like enormous in size. So they don't fit like into your cheap laptop anymore. Like companies collect like petabytes of data, but at the same time, they wanna extract and generate insights out of that data. Also, uh, we as developers or as engineers, we'd like to create apps and experience for our customers that will uh, will generate just perfect user experience for them, and that like in the front end space, in the like application space, it usually means that the app should be just crazily fast and responsive. It should react like within hundreds of milliseconds to a user's action, or respond with readily available data on a chart or in a table just instantly, so the user doesn't get bored or distracted by something else. And also, since the amounts of data are just tremendous, that those applications should not sacrifice the cost effectiveness while bringing the performance to users. And that's kind of a tricky part, and we'll dig deeper into that in a bit. So what also changes is that this demand for insights and demand for applications from our end users is just growing very fast as well. And to supply that demand, what we can do is, to, well, we're like we are engineers, and we can write some code sometimes, and we can create some applications from scratch, but that's not enough. That is why we need effective low code tools to be able to like create apps just instantly, and that's what we'll be showcasing and demoing today. And yeah, because if we enable developers and engineers to build like internal tools for our end users quicker, we'll be able to get those insights quicker, and um, um, obviously that would be much much better case than spending just weeks and months on building something from scratch, something custom, and only then realizing that their insight, well, is not that great. So what's Cube? Well, the the definition or the tagline that we have is that Cube is headless BI for building powerful, fast, and consistent data applications. This might sound a little bit complex, and if you need kind of a shorter explanation, it's just API for data apps, or a developer tool that allows you to just bootstrap an API for data apps. But let me quickly expand like every other word in this definition, so it really starts to make sense. So headless here means that, well, Cube can provide you data, but it doesn't care how it will be visualized down the road. So you can obviously you can use Appsmith to build a front end on top of Cube. Other ways of consuming data from Cube are also available, like maybe doing some HTTP query through the REST API, or maybe even using SQL API on top of Cube. There are many APIs supported, but headless here means that, well, Cube provides that data. You're free to decide however you'll use it. A business intelligence part means that Cube is focused on analytics, and making sense of mostly quantitative data, something that looks like metrics, something that you'll be putting on charts or in tables, and that's, well, mm, that's where you get the insights right now. And well, powerful, fast, and consistent here. They all are here for a reason, because, for example, since Cube supports multiple APIs and maybe multiple applications which can be connected to the same API instance simultaneously, it means that Cube will provide the same data with the same metrics to every app, and basically you won't have inconsistencies when one app shows you that some number, maybe like unique number of visitors on the website, or the total amount of sales or something else, in one app like has some value x, and another app it's not x, it's something different. It's just it's just impossible with Cube, and that's why the data will be consistent and fast here. Is for a reason that regardless of the data source that Cube can be connected to, regardless of their queries that your application sent to Cube via the API, and regardless of the amounts of data that Cube is processing for you, it is able to serve the API requests, with in under a second per request. It's usually 2 or maybe 300 milliseconds, and the concurrency may grow up to like 100 requests per second or maybe 500 requests per second, no problem. So you'll be able to well to get your get application up and running really in a fast manner. So yeah, this is kind of a quick recap of what Cube is, and at this point, I'd like to turn the mic to my colleague, teammate Adnan, so he can tell you why Cube really loves Appsmith. Let me stop sharing my screen then.
Yep. Confidence, you can just switch over to mine as well, so we can continue from there. Awesome. Sweet. Yeah, let's just jump in. Now, Igor obviously did an amazing job in explaining the most important parts of Cube, but I would just like to go into the detail of why we think that Cube and Appsmith are a great combo. First and foremost, because if we break down all of the things that Igor just explained, Cube lets you do 3 things super quickly and really simply. And that's accessing the data, organizing the data into metrics, and then exposing APIs. This means that you can access the data from any data store. And by any, I mean literally any that you would want to run in production. And then you can take that data and provide it to Appsmith to do the actual laying out of the data or consuming of the data. And this is key because it takes away all of the complexity and all of the slow response times. And of course, it enables all of the concurrency that Igor just talked about. And then when we move into the Appsmith part, you can load the metrics and create the dashboards by loading the data from the REST API that Cube provides. Furthermore, then you can transform the responses and do pretty much everything or anything you want inside of Appsmith. And then this whole process is just so simple and automated that, I mean, it's insanely cool. Yep. So once we're done with the interesting part of the theory, I think we should also talk a bit more about how all of this works. First and foremost, Cube lets you connect to pretty much any database. Now, this means that we support any database that you would want to run in production. And Cube, as a philosophical thing, it is literally a centralized metrics layer. So it sits right in the middle of your infrastructure, where you have on the left-hand side, you can see the data sets that you want to load. It can be any type of data warehouse. It can be Postgres. It can be ClickHouse. It could be pretty much anything. And Cube loads this data and is the single source of truth for any types of metrics inside of your application stack. And this is incredibly cool and incredibly valuable because building this yourself is not simple. It's incredibly complicated. And then furthermore, the way Cube does this, how it builds these schemas of the data, it's by using OLAP cubes. Now, we don't have to go into so much detail right now. I'll show you in the demo as well. But what you need to know is that OLAP stands for Online Analytical Processing, and it's quite literally the schema that defines the measures and the dimensions for the data you want to display as metrics. I'm not quite sure if we can explain that any simpler, so we can go into the Q&A afterwards to break it down even more. Now, why Cube is so powerful and basically the bread and butter is because you can get query acceleration by using something we call data aggregation. And we quite literally call them pre-aggregations because these allow you to make condensed versions of the source data. And they're quite literally condensed versions of the source data that are partitioned, stored, and refreshed. So it's basically like a super complicated, super intelligent type of caching system. And to understand it, what it does for you is that it optimizes the querying and makes it super quick. If you want to break it down even more, so we can make it even more understandable, is that the data condensing itself is kind of like group by in SQL. You can think of it logically that way, so you can understand it or explain it to yourself in an easier way. Now, to even go more into this, I want to show you a visual representation of what that would look like. And you can see on the left-hand side, you have data that has more than 1 million or so rows. And then on the right side, you have the aggregated version of the same data, which has around 120 rows. Now, I mean, I would bet that the querying the right side is a lot quicker than the left side. Let me just give a second. Sorry, guys. Okay, so this is just to confirm if everybody can see the actual. Yep, there we go. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, sweet. So everybody can see this now. Awesome, sweet. Let's just move on from there. So yeah, I was explaining how you can have this pre-aggregated data and make sure that the querying is super quick, because the actual physical amount of rows that you need to query is so much smaller than the actual physical amount of rows that you would have in the raw data set. So yeah, so that's incredibly cool. Now, of course, the APIs you have at your disposal is you have REST, you have GraphQL, and you have SQL. So basically, we wanted to go the path where we let the developer choose what they want to use. Of course, REST is a perfect example of something that would work with Appsmith, and that's something we'll demo a bit later here as well. Now, I just want to jump back to this graph I showed a moment ago. And as you can see on the right-hand side, just next to the cube in the middle, is you can see that you have these 3 APIs that we want to provide, and then we can have all of these different tools on the right side. And this is something that we think Appsmith is a super nice fit in this graph, because it just consumes the REST API that we already provide. Also, I just want to mention something that I think is really cool, is that you get role-based access control and security out of the box, where in Cube, if you look at this screenshot, you can see that there's a .role field. And that's something you can add into the API token. So the authorization token you get, which you use to send requests to this REST API, you can add in this extra layer of security where you can have a role and then deny access to this API just by enabling this role-based authentication. And I think that's super cool to have by default. And you can make security and things like that just a breeze. It's going to be so simple to make this. Obviously, the last thing that I want to mention regarding developer playgrounds and testing environments is that we do expose a playground by default. And this is just a safe space you can use to explore queries, to test the queries before actually putting them inside of your own app. And with that, I would like to jump in and show you how this works. Now, I'm just going to go in and change the this. Everybody can still see this, right? I hope.
Yes, I
hope
can.
this is fine. Awesome. And so now I've just jumped into Cube Cloud, and I just want to show you the playground here. If you're looking at the playground itself, you can run different types of queries by changing the measures and the dimensions. And now, before we go into more details there, I would just want to show you how easy it is to actually connect a database to your own Cube deployment. Now, we can just name this deployment, let's say sample one. Actually, let's do sample Appsmith. We can choose any cloud platform you want. You should ideally choose the region and the platform where your database is hosted, because that's just going to make latency quicker. And once you hit next, you can choose whether to import a repo from GitHub, or you can just create one from scratch. The creating is just super simple, so you can do that. Of course, we do have a demo DB ready that we exposed here in Cube, and that's something we just use for testing. It just has some e-commerce data, and let me just show you the process of connect to that. Yeah, so there we go. So, and then once you do actually establish the connection with the database, you can select how to generate a data schema. And this means that you can quite literally take a table from the database and then have Cube generate the data schema based on that table automatically, like just like magic. Now, I personally think this is incredibly cool and time saving because if you, of course, I'm not going to wait for this to spin up. I'll just move to a running instance and show you the schema here. And if you open up the schema you have on the left-hand side here, you can see that you get all of these dimensions and measures predefined for you. So you don't really have to, put in any time and hassle to figure out how many columns you have in the database, what's the name of everything, and how to map it into your metrics here. And now let's just jump back to the playground so I can show you. If you want to select, let's say we have a measure that's a count of orders, and then we just want to count these orders per state. If we run this query, we'll just get this beautiful graph back. And what's so amazing with this is that if you want to put this graph into your front end, you have that here where you can select the type of data viz library you want to use. So you can say, okay, so I want to use React, I want to use Chart.js, and I want to see the code. And then I get the code here. So I think this is a super neat thing that a lot of people use for not just for testing, but also for like getting generated code. So you can test it in your own app as well. Obviously, one thing I do want to stress here is that we also get this option of copying the JSON query, because this is the actual query in the JSON body that you would send in a post request to the endpoint that you have here, which you would use in your own either JavaScript, React app, or whatever else. And this is something you'll see a bit more of once Confidence is going to show you the part in Appsmith where you actually use this URL with the auth token I was just mentioning. So yeah, let me just jump back to the slides here so I remember what we have to talk about. So the next step I did want to talk about is editing the schema itself. Now, if I do jump in back to the schema, and you see I have some things that I commented out here, and those are the things I really want to go into more detail about. Now, first and foremost, we do have this development mode thing inside of Cube Cloud as well, where you can quite literally have different branches where you do some development, and then you can keep them all away from the master branch. And then when you want to merge all of these changes, you can. So it's a bit of a safety net you have there as well. Now, obviously, what I wanted to show is that for the measures, you can also go ahead and create some custom measures as well. Where, let's say I want to show the unique orders, and I'm using this count distinct type for the order ID. I'm also doing the same thing for the customer ID, and then I also want to do a sum of the quantity of all of these items. So I'm getting 3 more types of measures, but I want to add in these segments. And a segment the most simple way of explaining what a segment would be that it's a predefined filter. So if I select this segment, I'm going to get a filter, and I don't really need to type it in the UI, or I don't have to type it inside of my code. I'll just take this segment and use that instead of typing in the whole filter. And that's also a super nifty and super cool thing you can use as well. Now, if I want to save these changes, I can just go ahead and save them. And I can do all of the testing I want on this development branch, as we can call it. Or I can just go ahead and commit and push everything, and I can say, okay, so I want this to master, so I've edited the schema. I'm gonna go ahead and commit and push this. Now, this is gonna take maybe a few seconds or so to push and to restart the API itself. Small changes like this never really take a lot of time. Yeah, you can see that API is ready already. So yeah, so that's it. Now, if I go back to the playground and I run another query where I have, let's say I want to try out all of these new measures I just added. So I'll just reload this and see if the deployment, the deployment is building. So it's probably going to take a bit more time. But yeah, let's just take a second or two to wait for this to build. And I can show you the actual way you can use these new measures to load the data and to display the data here.
By the way, Adnan, what's your favorite Cube feature?
Favorite Cube feature?
Yeah.
Dude, if I say anything that's not pre-aggregation, I'd just be lying. Like pre-aggregations are absolute magic. It was a while back, a few months ago, I wrote a pretty extensive blog post about how we can. Actually, I was doing some benchmarking, and then that kind of went to the idea of doing the blog post, where we did some extensive benchmarking, where we tried to figure out what was the cap for latency for a certain number of concurrent requests for data warehouses. So I tested BigQuery. And I figured out that the latency just went super crazy when the concurrency goes above 100 requests per second. And that was actually something that I wasn't very happy with because, in production, you're not really going to have few requests. It's always going to be a crazy amount of requests, especially if it's like a peak season or if you have an e-commerce site and it's Black Friday. That's just one example. So we did some testing where we set up this configuration with using pre-aggregations to aggregate the data that we wanted to display, and then we used some benchmarks on that. And I figured out that we could get like solid like over 200 or so requests per second, getting crazy high concurrency, and the request latency was always like under a second. So just like the performance, like the crazy performance with pre-aggregations, that's something that's it's undeniably cool. It's just absolutely amazing. And then there's like 3 empty spaces of cool features, and then I think the role-based access. I can show you that here in the schema while this is reloading in this file. You can just jump into the Cube.js file and add that role-based access in here, and it's just so convenient. Like things like this just makes it easy. Like you don't hate programming. Like I've been programming for like with JavaScript like since 2014 or so, like before Webpack and before all of those cool things. And I remember using Bower and like building stuff and like building the optimized code and that was a nightmare, man. It was absolutely I hated life when I had to do that stuff. And then now this just makes me excited again about building things, Um,
I'm
so yeah,
definitely going to check out pre-aggregation. I don't think I have explored that yet.
yeah, you definitely should. I can also share with everybody listening. We have a few videos on our YouTube, and we also have a workshop that we did a few months back as well, explaining how to work with pre-aggregation. So you definitely should. I can just find those links a bit later on and share those with everybody as well.
Okay, cool.
Let me just check if this is reloaded. Yeah, it's cool. So yeah, so now what I've done here, I've just selected all of the measures that I just added in, and let's just say, yeah, let's run this. Yeah, and now you get a chart where you're seeing, okay, so I got all of these measures, and I've had them mapped out across all time, and they're grouped by month. Awesome. Now, of course, if I want to use a segment, now this segment is literally a filter, but you see that I kind of have to fiddle with the filters, and then they're not, and I don't really want to do that. So I'll just, you can just jump in, click a segment, and you're done. You hit run, and that's it. This is super convenient, super nice, and I love doing that. Yeah, what else? I think we can, with this, I think this would be a perfect moment to jump over to Appsmith and just use this endpoint we got here to build the dashboards.
All right, cool. So thanks so much for walking us through Cube. Now I think I can share my screen, and let's head over to building your website. Okay, so right here I have the same Cube dashboard where Adnan configured all of the setup for the data. And the first thing I need to do here to start building with Appsmith is to connect to my Appsmith instance. So there are various options here to connect to the Appsmith. You have REST API, you have SQL, GraphQL. I'm going to be using REST, so I'm just going to copy this over, head to Appsmith, and create a new data source. So let's go create a new data source. So create an authenticated API. I'm going to call this Cube and paste in the URL I have copied here. I'm just going to add the /load here. And the other thing I need to do here is I need to pass in some token. So I'm going to add my authorization token. I think I can grab this from here. And that's all I need to do to connect to the Cube. So I have the Cube data source connected, and now we can start building with Cube. So I think the first query I am going to be making is want to get other details. And the playground right here in Cube actually makes things really easy. So I think I really love this feature, Adnan. It makes it so easy to test out what you're building before you actually go take it out to your application to display those charts. So for the details I would want to capture here, so let's capture the counts. Also want to capture the unique orders. Let's also record the customers. And lastly, we have the items. And we can add some time dimension here. So for the time dimension, I'm going to select the order date, and we can segment this by month. So we have months right here. And let's make sure that the filter is such that we are ordering by the order date. So we have the order date right here. I'm just going to mark this as a descending order, and we can run this right here within the playground, and we have a chart showing us all of the data we just selected using the measures. And we can actually change this chart to view how it would look like on other visualization tools. So let's set this to bar, for example. You can see we have a nice stacked bar here showing us all of the measures selected from the filters. And I can take this out by copying the JSON query. It's so easy to take out. So I can go to JSON here, copy this, and that's basically all we need to do here. So using the data I have just copied over, we can go create a query to pull in the same data that was displayed on Cube into the Appsmith dashboard. So let's call these orders details. All right. And I'm going to mark this as a post request. We need to pass in some body. And the only required field here is the query key. And I can go ahead to paste in the query I just copied from the dashboard. So running this should return all of the data that was used to build the chart you saw earlier. And we have that data coming back here. You can see all of the records being displayed right here, containing the month, the date, the count, the unique orders, the customers, and also the items. So using this data, we can actually go build some display for the dashboard. And I'm just going to first start with displaying all of these matrices in a table widget. So we have a table widget here. Let's try to center this. All right, I think this looks good. And I'm just going to hide the months because we already have the order dates in the table so that everything looks nice. For the order dates, what I'm going to do here to make it more readable, because if you take a look at what we have right here, this is in timestamp format, so it's going to be more difficult for you to read this. So let's make this more readable by formatting it a bit. So I can go edit this column, set it to a date column, and set the display format, how I want it to be presented on the table. So let's mark this. I think this format looks good. This is actually so much better to read and easier to take a look at. So here we have the table configured, and it was just so easy to do. Next thing we can do here is to actually fetch orders by states so that we're able to figure out the percentage of orders coming in from each state, and that can help us make decisions on where to focus more attention on growth and where to optimize supply chains to make things so much easier. So let's go build a query to do this, and let's head back to the playground. I'm just going to create a new um, query tab, and for this, we're just going to be measuring the counts, and we want to segment this based on the state. So for segment, this is going to be, or for dimensions rather, this is going to be state, and that's basically all we need to do. So I can run this, and here we're able to see the orders coming in. We can see the state rather on this column, and we can see the total count of orders for each state coming from the database. So this looks good. This is exactly what I need on the dashboard, and I can go copy the JSON query for this. So I'm just going to copy this, head back to Appsmith. Let's create a new query using Cube. So I'm just going to create a new query from this API. I'm going to call this orders by state. By state. And for this query, I'm going to mark this as a get query. So you can actually use both post and get requests for your communication with Cube. Depends on whatever you fancy, but Cube accepts all that all the options available. So this is going to be, we need to supply a query parameter here. So this is going to be query. And for the value, this is going to be the JSON we copied over from Cube. So we can go run this. And here we have the data coming in back from the dashboard. So we can see the state and we can see the count of the orders available from that state, or the total orders that was recorded in that particular state. So let's take this and let's actually display this in a chart. So I can head here, bring in a chart widget here. So we have a chart widget right here. All right, I'm going to try to place this nicely. All right, and for this chart requires that we have, or we supply data containing both X and Y coordinates. As you can see from the series data right here, we need to supply an array that has both X and Y coordinates. So it will mean that we would need to map over the data coming from Cube a bit in order to do this. So let's actually write some JavaScript to do this. So we can pull in the data coming from Cube by typing orders by stage. Sorry, this should be orders by state. I think I made a typo by typing that query out. So this should be orders by state. Let's head back to STAT. All right. And now we can go display this in the chart. So this is orders by state dot data. And here we have all of the data coming in back. But we need to map over this so that we make sure that we have the right format being returned to the chart widget. So this is going to be, I'm going to map over this and return a list of objects that has a X coordinate. And for the X coordinates, this is just going to be coming from the other states. So this is going to be other dot state. All right. And we also need to supply the Y coordinates for the chart. This is going to be coming in from the orders count. So this is going to be orders dot count. And that's all we basically need to do here. And we can see a nice chart displaying the total orders coming from the different states recorded in the database. So let's go clean this chart up a bit. So for the title, I'm just going to say orders by state. And for the x-axis, this is going to be states. And for the y-axis, this is going to be orders. And right there, you have a really nice looking chart displaying the orders by state. So one other cool thing I would like to show you is that it's actually really possible to display complex charts on Appsmith. So heading back to the Cube dashboard, and let's go take a look at what we have in query one. So let's just go to charts, and I'm going to run this one more time. You can see here that we have a stacked chart that is displaying all orders, both orders, unique orders, customer counts, other items, all in a stacked chart grouped by month. So would it be possible to display a complex chart like this on Appsmith? Yes, it is. And that's because you can use custom charts on Appsmith. So let me show you how this can be done. So here, I'm going to bring in a new chart widget. Place that nicely. I'm going to resize this. All right, so here we have the chart widget. But what we can do here, since we need to use a custom chart, is to set the chart type to custom chart. And here, you actually have access to the underlying Fusion Charts API to build really complex charts. So Apps uses Fusion charts behind the scenes, and it means you have access to um, tens of different charts formats. And the one we'll be using today is the stacked column chart. So this is the basic UI on the Fusion Charts doc. Here I have the Fusion Charts doc open, and this doc explains exactly how you can make use of this chart. All you need to do to use this chart is pass in some chart metadata. Then you also need to pass in an array of categories. And the last thing you need to do here is to pass the data set that would be used to plot the chart. So let's go supply all of that information here. All right, so we have the chart type set to the stacked column chart. Then we have the chart field for the metadata that includes the x-axis name, the y-axis name, and the theme. Then the categories array will be used to plot the x-axis, whereas the data set would be the amount of data points we want to plot on the y-axis. So let's actually build this out. For this, we'll need to write some JavaScript. So let's go write some JS right now. I'm going to create a new JavaScript file. I'll be using the keyboard shortcut Option-Shift-N to create a new JS object file. All right, and let's clean this up a bit. I'm going to call this file utils, and this function should be chart. And I don't need this to be an async function because we would not be making any queries in this function. So for the chart data, I'm just going to paste in the code I have previously written here, and we'll go over this quickly so that you see everything that we need to do here to build a custom chart. So the first thing we need here is to create a category, which in this case will be the months, because heading back to Cube, you have months shown right here on the x-axis. So we have the months similarly used to build out the category. You can see we're using the dates, and we're using moments right here to make it nicely formatted so that it's easy for us to see. Then for the data sets, we want to plot on the same chart. We want to plot the unique orders. You can see here we are similarly doing a map for unique orders. We also want to plot the orders. We want to plot the customers all in the same graph. So we're actually pulling all of this data from the order details query. And here's where we are trying to present it in the form that Fusion wants us to present it in. So we have the categories array, we have the data sets array, and all we're doing right here is returning this back to whoever calls the chart function. And we can actually use this in the chat widget that you saw earlier. So let's go use this in the chat widget. All right, so right here, what I'm going to do is call the utils file, the JavaScript file, and actually get the categories from the chart function. So this is going to be, I'll need to write some JS here. So this is going to be utils dot charts, and then we can have access to the categories. All right, that looks good. We can see that we have the categories being displayed right there. Next thing we need to do here is also display the data for the data set. And to do this similarly, we need to write some JavaScript. So we need to pull in the data sets coming from the chart function. So this is going to be utils.chart.data set. All right. Did I type? This should be data set. All right, that looks good. And I can reload the chart here. And you see that we have the stacked chart exactly as we have on the Cube dashboard displayed right here on Appsmith. So we're able to view multiple data points in the same chart using this complex chart. And we can actually go rename this chart so that it actually displays or describes what data is displayed in the chart. So this is going to be the monthly metrics chart. And here we have a nice chart displaying all of those data points in a single place. The last thing I would like to show you here as a bonus is configuring auto updates, because for some of these analytics dashboards, you would want to see the most recent information as soon as it is available. And one cool way to do that is by configuring auto updates for your dashboard. So to show you how to do this, I'm just going to bring in a switch widget here. So let's place a switch widget here. And for the label, I'm just going to call this auto update. And I want this to be turned off by default. All right. Last thing I need to do here is to write some JS logic that would control the auto update flow. So to do that, let's head back to the JavaScript file here. And I'm going to add a new function here for auto update. So this is auto update. And this is going to be a function. And the logic for auto update is actually really simple. So we want it such that whenever the switch is switched on, we create an interval that Go calls the other details API on a specified interval, maybe once every 2-3 seconds. So let's actually write that out. So let's say if the switch is switched on, we want to create an interval using set interval, and what we want to do is call or run the other details API call each time. So this is .run, and we want to run this, let's say, every 3 seconds. And the last thing we need to do here is to pass an ID so that we can go clear this interval whenever the switch is turned off. So I'm just going to quickly create a random string ID. So this is const ID, and this can be any string. So this is my string ID, right? And let's use that as the ID for the set interval here. So this is ID. And the last thing I want to do here is that whenever the switch is turned off, we can go stop the auto update flow. So this is else. Else, we just want to clear the interval using the ID provided above. So this is going to be clear interval, and for the ID, we're just going to pass the ID specified here to the clear interval function. And that's largely all we need to do. So I can go back to the dashboard, turning this on. Okay, we do not have this wired up, so that's not going to work. So when the switch is turned on, we need to go call the JavaScript auto update function. And here we have the onChange event. So I can go select the auto update function, and this should work now. So turning this on is going to update the dashboard every 3 seconds so that we have the most up-to-date information showing up on the dashboard. And just in case you do not like the loading animation on the table widget, you can actually go turn this off. So here you have the animate loading property. So you can go turn this off, and the update is still going to happen on the dashboard, but it's just going to happen silently without having to show the loading animation on the table. Last thing I'm going to do here is give this a title. So I'm going to say Cube and Appsmith BI tool. All right. So I can actually increase the font size a bit so that it's more legible. Yeah, and this looks done. So I can go ahead to deploy this. And right here, we have the dashboards completely built in a matter of minutes. So it was so easy to get this built because we're using both Cube and Appsmith to have this done. All right, so it was really fun building this out. I think we have a couple of questions in the chat, and we can take them now. All right, so I can take a question here. Show up in every single moment you're. Okay, I don't understand that question. But here's a question for you, Adnan.
Yep.
So it is, I think the question here is trying to ask, is Cube kind of like Directus or Strappy, or is it something really different?
Well, actually, when I'm thinking about it, it seems to be that Directus is similar. I've personally not used Directus myself, so I can't say for sure. But Directus seems to be similar. Yeah. Metabase and Strappy, Metabase and Strapi would not be like Cube. They would be like integrations you would use on top of Cube or something that you would use with Cube. Because checking out Metabase, it's more of a data viz tool, and checking out Strapi, it's also kind of more of a headless CMS. So I think personally, Cube is a bit different. Cube is more of a centralized metrics layer. That's more of the central single source of truth you would want to have within your infrastructure when you're building tools like this. But yeah, I hope that's okay of an answer. If you want to talk more about it, I mean, feel free to just shoot a message in either the Appsmith Discord. I'm there as well, or you can just join the Cube Slack and you can just ping me there directly as well.
All right, cool. Thanks for taking that. So if you have any questions, please do feel free to put them in the chat, and we would love to take your questions now.
If you have a few more minutes, I'd love to show you the pre-aggregation part,
Oh,
because
okay, cool.
yeah, the dashboard that you built, it's absolutely phenomenal. It looks beautiful. But the fact is, if that data set grows to be 50 million rows, or like something crazy, then those dashboards can get unreliable. They can load for like ages. They can break. So I would love to show you just how to make sure that that doesn't really happen. And that's quite simple, actually.
Okay,
If we take the same, like if we take the same query you just ran now to build the let's just change this to be a bar chart as well, so it looks the same. So if we take the same query you just ran, we have this button here that goes, do you want to create a pre-aggregation? And then it just generates it for you, meaning that if you click a button, it's going to just add it to the data schema automatically. And I have that actually ready to go over here. So if you check it out, you have this pre-aggregation section, and then here's the actual code that gets auto-generated by the rollup designer I just showed you. And let me just uncomment that, save it, and just go ahead and commit and push. Oh, if you would believe me, like that's all you need to do. Like there's it's just magic, when you think about it. Now once this gets added and the API restarts, it's going to take a moment to restart. And once it actually goes through and generates all of these pre-aggregations, meaning the data itself, it starts generating the condensed data. You'll see that this query that we just ran, it'll never take an insane amount of time. It will always be reliable, and it will always load from the cache. Of course, you're now thinking, caches can be complicated. You need to invalidate. You need to do all of those complicated things. That's something you set yourself in the config. If you open up the config and you set, I want it to refresh every minute, it's going to refresh every minute. If you want it to refresh when an insert statement is done against your database, it's going to refresh then. So it's very flexible. It's very, very it's I'm telling you, it's magic. It works crazy good. And now if we head back here, and once it does deploy the new build, you'll see a nice lightning icon pop up and show that it was indeed accelerated with the pre-aggregation. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. One thing as you're building this out that came to my mind is it possible to commit your schema to an external Git repository that's not within your instance? Is that possible?
Yeah, for sure. The thing is that this was just the quickest way of me demoing how to add a schema, how to get it going, and just create a deployment. Of course, you can just go ahead to the settings, and then you have the build and deploy. And if you want, you can just connect it to GitHub. Like you can just have a GitHub repository and connect it here, and then you can add in deployments that are continuous whenever you want them to. Like you can say, okay, so I want the master branch of GitHub. Whenever somebody commit something to master, I just want it to deploy by itself. You can just also set up the Git yourself. It doesn't have to be GitHub, like if you use GitLab or whatever. So yeah, so it's really cool. Really cool. And then you can just have all of your team members collaborate through GitHub. So you don't really have to touch anything here in the schema section here in Cube Cloud. You can just make it through GitHub and through using code editors, you know. So yeah, that's also super cool.
All right, that's cool. We have a question here, and I think this is for me, but we can both take this. It says, are there plans to create a deeper integration so that we can directly add a cube chart without having to map the data and build a Fusion chart config? So because of the way things are structured right now, you still have to make queries on AppSmith in order to get that data. But for the structure of the chart, I I'm not sure, but I think that's something Cube can actually provide because I was taking a look at the charts drop down on Cube, and I can see charts like charts.js. I can
Yeah,
see D3.js. So is it
yeah.
also possible, Adnan, to copy the code structure for those charts from within Cube? Is that something possible?
No, I mean, as far as I know, it shouldn't be a problem to add in fusion charts here as well. Obviously, that's something we have to figure that out inside of the product team and figure out when we're going to get the bandwidth to even add that feature. But I think personally that would be super cool. These charts we have here, we just went with, you know, what's the most popular, what does everybody use, and then we added that in here. I mean, it's the same as like React, Angular, Vue. It's just what does everybody use, and then we added it in. I'll definitely take this up with the product team and ask them if we could add fusion charts as well, because I mean, it would definitely just ease everything to just the next level where almost no complication whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah. Even right now, it's actually really easy to
Hmm.
build custom charts, even without a native integration in AppSmith or in CubeJS. So you you kind of like visualize how you want the chart to look like on the playground, and you can take out that data easily and go build on AppSmith or somewhere else you have in mind. So it's really pretty easy right now, but I'm sure we can actually make the experience so much easier.
Yeah, I'm writing down. Let me just actually just let me write that down right away so I don't forget. Ping product team with idea for fusion charts. Wait, okay. I'm definitely gonna make sure that I ask the guys as well. Um, yeah, and also that Ami, like your longtime users of Cube, I think that's great. I think that I'm super happy to see that. Yeah, I like the fact that you're also so happy to share it, because I mean, I'm just blown away. I've been with Cube since last summer, so like not even a year. And dude, like every month, it's just a breakthrough. Like the core team is absolutely phenomenal. The guy, I mean, I'm not even kidding. Like those guys are like next level smart. Like I'm not that smart, man. Like seriously, those dudes are geniuses. I'm not even exaggerating. Those guys are like next level intelligent. But yeah, no, I really like the fact that you're sharing that you like it. I'm super happy.
All right. So please feel free to share any more questions you have. You're about talking about your third favorite feature of Cube. You talked about aggregations. I think you talked about access control, role-based
Hmm.
access control. What was the third one?
Actually, let me see if I can just find a quick example for the role-based access control. So yeah, so here you can see a perfect example. So basically, the security context is something you get. It's just a default parameter that you get if you add the auth token itself. Now, of course, if you add this piece of code, like we should just copy that in and just put it over here so we can have a better view of it. And if we add that in to this guy, okay, well, I just have to wait. And if you add it in here, oh, sorry, the whole thing. Try to rewrite the whole thing here. Yeah. So if I add this in, and you can see that if I say, okay, so if there is absolutely no role whatsoever, this API is going to return an error. So nobody is going to have access to this API if this role is not found. Now, of course, the way you add it is like John IO, this guy. And then the way you add it is that you just go to your auth token. Obviously, you're going to be doing this in your code. You're not going to be doing it here, but you just have a role that says admin, you know, uh, like that. I hope you can see this, right? I'm
Yes, I
not
can.
cool,
Yes, I
cool,
can.
cool. So then you have the role that's admin, and if you go over here and you say, okay, so if I don't have a role at all, Sweet. Nobody can access this. If my role is admin, cool. I can access this just fine. Return query. All good. If my role is like operator, then maybe I'm going to filter the query, and I'm only going to have options to view things that are for the operator. I don't really know. I mean, I'm just like spitballing ideas. But this is the power of it, is that you just get this, and it's like 10 lines of code, and it just works. And I think that's an incredibly cool feature as well. And probably, yeah, I think that will be the next one after the pre-aggregation. But the pre-aggregation is just insane. I'm telling you. I'm going to share that blog post I wrote a while back so you can see it.
Okay.
But getting like insane levels of latency, like well below a second for like 100, 200 requests per second is just nuts for anything. Like the benchmarking I did, it's like the actual server I was running the benchmarks on, it was just a node server, like basic node server with like 8 cores. The server was the bottleneck. That's how quick the response from the cache, the database cache, like the Cube pre-aggregation was, that the actual server was like, bro, no, I can't do this anymore. So yes, I was blown away by that. I think that's incredibly cool as well. And if you read the blog post, you're gonna see that as well.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think this role-based access control is really going to be nice for production environment and large teams, so that you are able to give access to specific apps that do not require access to other parts of your data. So I think
Yeah,
this really
exactly.
makes sense.
Sweet.
All right. So it seems we are not having any more questions coming in. It was really nice having you here today, Adnan. So I'm just going to turn off the screen share. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really nice having you here and chatting with you and building out the dashboards together. It was really nice.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like the thing where you added the dedicated file for JavaScript, I didn't know that was a thing. Like I feel ashamed because I even built stuff with Appsmith. Like it was super fun to actually build the dashboards. And then I was like, what, this like data binding is kind of complicated if you need. And then I just like, obviously you're gonna have a file. Like why didn't I didn't even think of that. So yeah, so that was, I feel a bit ashamed, but that's so cool. Like
Yeah,
the
it makes
actual
it
file. Yeah, it's so cool.
yeah, it makes it really easy to write complicated code, especially when you want to do things like the custom charts we are building out. So uh, easy to put everything in one place and easy to maintain.
Sweet. Yeah.
All right. So it was nice having you here. I hope you all had fun being with us on today's stream, and we would catch you in the next one. So take care, everyone. Have a nice evening, and bye bye.
Bye bye.